Hello everyone, so today our group will present about a topic that is in the title, the relationship between GDP and key macroeconomic variables in Japan, including the inflation rate, unemployment rate, and the exchange rate. So let's go! As we all know, Japan's economy faced several challenges from 2005 until 2024. So let's go to the problem statement part. Now let's move on to the objective of this study.
Next, I'm going to explain the economic theory that we use in our case study. Firstly, we have inflation rate. Inflation rate is the rate at which the general price level of goods and services in economy increase over time. A rising inflation rate means the purchasing power of money decreases, making everyday items more expensive. Secondly, we have unemployment rate. Unemployment rate measures the percentage of people in the labor force who are actively seeking for work but cannot find employment. It's a key indicator of economic health, as high unemployment often signals economic distress. Lastly, we have foreign exchange rate. This is the value of one country's currency compared to another's. It determines how much of one currency can be exchanged for another and significantly impacts international trade and investment.
This is the equation that helps us understand how GDP is influenced by inflation, unemployment, and foreign exchange rates. Let's break it down. Firstly, GDP is what we want to predict, the gross domestic product at time. Beta 0 is the starting point or baseline GDP when all other factors are zero. Beta 1 shows how inflation affects GDP. If it is negative, higher inflation lowers GDP. Beta 2 measures the impact of unemployment. A negative value means more unemployment reduces GDP. Beta 3 tells us how changes in the exchange rate affect GDP. This could be positive or negative. And finally is the error term, covering other factors that are not included in the model.
Next, I'll be presenting about the econometric model. We choose to use double log model to analyze the impact of inflation rate, unemployment rate, and foreign exchange rate on GDP. Based on the result from e-views, we analyzed that 1% increases in inflation rate leads to a 0.001164% increase in GDP, which show a positive relationship. Next, a 1% increase in unemployment rate reduces GDP by 0.010019%, which show a negative relationship. Lastly, a 1% increase in the exchange rate will reduce GDP by 0.003385%, which show a negative relationship. The R-squared value is 0.965, meaning that 96.1% of GDP variation are explained by the model. It shows extremely good fit for economic growth.
For the data collection, we have chosen World Bank data, investing.com, and Macrotrends website to collect all the data.
So based on table 1, it shows that summary statistic, which does for 4 variables, which is log GDP, inflation, unemployment, and exchange rate. So the average value of log GDP growth is 12.70% and inflation is 0.66% and unemployment is 3.45% and exchange rate is 109.95%. For the standard deviation, which values indicate that inflation and exchange rate are subject to more variation as compared with the logarithm of GDP growth and employment rate. And the skewness and kurtosis indicate that the variable data is quite close to normality and is also confirmed with the Jacques-Bera test. This result makes this data more favorable for regressions analysis, a common econometric modeling technique for relationship of economic variables. Thank you. Okay, next for the data from the table 2 that indicate there are some correlation found between such variable as log GDP, inflation and employment, and also exchange rate. According to correlation analysis, shows that log GDP has a negative correlation with inflation and exchange rate, indicating that higher inflation rates and stronger yen yield lower GDP growth. And furthermore, log GDP is positively associated with employment, indicating that higher unemployment rates are correlated with higher GDP growth. So I find this consistent with the theoretical expectation of economic theory, which believe inflation and employment stand to influence economic growth.
Hi, I'm Katish, one of the members from my group, and I will explain about the result interpretation and estimation. Hi, in this part, I will explain about the regression analysis displayed in Table 3 concern log GDP and inflation, unemployment and exchange rate as a explanatory variables. The result shows a 1% increase in unemployment associated with 1.0019% decrease in log GDP. Higher unemployment will mean, in effect, lower GDP growth. High unemployment accordingly suggests a negative contribution to GDP growth. Similarly, a 1% increase in exchange rate also associated with a per unit drop in log GDP of 0.3385%. The stronger the yen, the less the GDP growth. In contrast, the inflation estimate does not possess statistically significant, which can only mean that inflation rates that do not have any significant contribution to GDP growth. The model possesses an R-square of 0.961, showing an incredibly good fit. These results solidly confirm to economic theory, according to which unemployment and exchange rate are major determinants of economic growth. Next, I will explain about the diagnostics test, which is multicollinearity test, which is the VIF clearly shows the variables multicollinearity relationship with each other. The most highly econometric measurable degree of association with between unemployment and exchange rate having the VIF values of 33.3993 and 115.2268 respectively. This predicts that the variables will be highly correlated with each other, which leads to providing unstable estimation of the regression coefficient. And finally, I will explain about the heterogeneity test, which the Birch-Pangan-Godfrey test indicates that significant level of heterogeneity exists in the residual with a p-value equal to 0.0113. This can be interpreted as a constant variance of the residual across different levels of the independent variables, which may lead to inefficient estimation of regression coefficient.